Want to welcome everybody back to hour number 2 of Free Capitalist Radio. This is Rick Kerber. I'm the Free Capitalist. Here with my producer posse, the Capitalist posse. I don't care what you call it, but we're all here and in the house with our brains on, talking about how to get out of the soup financially.
All synced up, man.
All synced up. That's right. Got a mastermind going on here. Right. Hour number 2, we're going to dedicate primarily to vouchers, but we're going to apply something to vouchers that I'm trying to finish a thought here about people. I'm trying to finish a thought here on how to help people get out of the financial doldrums, or the financial soup is what I call it.
All right, so the first thing was to get your head wrapped around principles, start reading good things such as Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in more detail some other time, and I teach lots of classes on this, but just over the air, I'm giving you a basic test, and if you don't believe it, if you think it's too simple, or if you think it's too whatever, would you just try it? Would you just be dumb enough to try? I mean, if you're depressed, if you're frustrated, if you're hopeless, if you don't have money, what do you have to lose? It costs nothing. It takes almost no time.
I remember the first time you said, just be dumb enough to follow the process, Gabe. Can you just be dumb enough to do that? I'm like, man, I can do that and one-up you on there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, so the idea is first, you got to find a source that you can turn to read principles. There's something about your brain and getting data into your brain. It's not the same as watching a movie. Watching movies are great learning experiences. They're great for the soul sometimes. They're great for the mind. They're great for the emotions. I mean, if you watch a good movie, it can move you to act. Man, if you want to move someone to act, you get them to watch some visually stimulating narratives like a play or a movie, sometimes multimedia, even on the internet, and then you follow that up with some audible invitation, something that goes in through their ears, just their ears. Man, they'll act. You could get them to go do something right there. But if you want to change from inside, you got to get that information in your eyes. Whole different. I know it sounds weird. Whole different schools of thought going on here. But you got lots of senses, and there's reasons for them. It's not out of accident. God's not a weird experimenter who just decided to give you certain senses because he couldn't come up with others or ran out of ideas or whatever. And so, but when you read, something's happening to your mind, and we don't have time to go into it in great lengths, but let me just give you an idea. It's not so much about what you're reading. If you're reading principle-based material, and I use some examples. I use the Declaration of Independence. I use the primer, and the reason I can use the primer is because I know what I wrote in the primer, and I know the other pieces of material that are in there very, very well. And I use the idea of scriptures, and is somebody saying, Rick, are you trying to put the primer on there? Just come on, hang out with me here. It doesn't matter so much what it's saying. It matters that you get your mind tracking with someone else who has been thinking in a principled way. Okay? Because what happens is there are patterns. There are patterns of thinking. And when you're in depression, or when you lack faith, or when you lack hope, when you can't find answers to problems, when you're in desperation or when you're in despair, particularly financial despair, your brain is cycling over and over and over. It's like a record that just got stuck. And you got to get it into a different groove. And so what happens is, by reading, even if you just take the Declaration of Independence, you're getting your mind. See, your mind stores its ideas in images. And I don't mean visual images, though that's true. Visual images, sound images, touch images, they're these experiences. So I could say to anybody, close your eyes and think of coffee. And you probably wouldn't see coffee, you'd probably smell it. Mm-hmm. And I could say to you, close your eyes and think of a rainbow, and you probably wouldn't feel it, or you'd probably see it, you see. And so your mind has all these concepts that you have assimilated from the time you're little. And some of them you've more rationally connected together than others. Well, ideas have consequences, and your financial ideas are a mess in your head. Okay? And so what happens is you start thinking in principle, and your mind starts behaving in a certain way. Then what you do is you take a pencil in hand. It's the motor skill involved that's very important. That's why typing doesn't do as good of a job. It's the motor skill involved of articulating what's in your mind now about the obstacle. So the second step is to write down the obstacle or the challenge that you're going to overcome, the thing you want to accomplish. And you want to write it down in as vivid and as detailed language as you can. It's not because it's weird. It's not self-help mumbo-jumbo. There's a mechanical process of getting an abstraction in your mind into a concrete reality on a piece of paper by going through a physical process. It's verifying that your mind is working. And if you can't do it, if you're struggling, you go back and you read more principles. And then you go back and you write until you can get a description that when you read it, it feels good. It feels right. Because what happens is if you're training your mind, it's like putting training wheels on your bicycle. If you're governing your mind by feeling it with writing that was written by inspired men or women, then what happens is your mind can then both push it out. So you'll write your challenge or you'll write your obstacle in a way that's meaningful, but then when you read it, you'll recognize it, and your mind then can grapple with that, and you got to read it. It's got to be out in front of you, not weird abstract thoughts in your head.
We've often said on the radio show that if you think money's the problem, then you probably haven't identified it quite yet.
Yes,
you know,
right.
This is the same principle that we're talking about. If you can't articulate it in writing, you generally have not identified the challenge or the problem in your life. Work on it more.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. There's an insight there, and that's this: you can get lost in your own head on purpose or on accident.
Right.
And a lot of us do that for a living. There are certain ideas that when we come up with contradictions in our mind, we just blank out. That's what it is you're taking a problem in your conscious mind and you're relegating it to your subconscious mind. You're just giving up in your conscious mind. The problem is you're consciously emotional about the decisions you're trying to make. And so you got a big hole in your brain. And then that's what leads to the reflection. A, B, C, what's next? I don't know. A, B, C, what's next? I don't know. A, B, C. Pretty soon you start to go mad. And it's that anxiety in your mind, and you can't get past it. It's being stuck in that rut on the record player. So you read principles, then you're writing your problem. You're exactly right. If you can't articulate it by writing it out, one of the things is you got to go back and fill your brain full of some healthy principle-based thought again. And what it will do is it's like a balm. I know this sounds weird. I'm not a holistic practitioner or anything like that. I'm just telling you, this is why it's important to teach kids when they're 5 how to read.
It will be so relieving to you when you can actually identify in very clear language that generally it doesn't have to be, a 10-page journal entry, you know? I mean, usually half a page maybe, and you're saying this is what it is.
And this is the formula out of depression, by the way.
Yeah, because then you can stop thinking about all of the other things.
You got another person's ideas. See, books, that's why books are so powerful. Yeah. You got another person's ideas, and you got your ideas. Another person's ideas, your ideas. Another person's ideas, your ideas. And the center dominant theme is principles, okay? And if you don't know what the principles are and you haven't applied your mind yet and you haven't identified those, you're going to have to take someone's word for it. You look at someone who's not in depression. And that's what I would call the second layer of truth here. There's all kinds of mentors or examples in the world of people who you say, well, I can't figure this out. I'm going to look to them, and I don't know whether they know something, but I'm just looking at them, and it doesn't seem to me like they have the problem I have, or it seems like they may have overcome the problem I have. And so sometimes if you get stuck and you don't know where to find principles, you have to take somebody's word for it. Mm-hmm. And what will happen is, no kidding, you'll start to get very clear on discerning the haves and the have-nots in the world of good ideas. Because a bad idea will not sit well with you. And you may not even be able to articulate it well at first, but you're going to go, BS, something's wrong here. And I just got done reading a book by a very good person, but the book stinks. And it's because they ghost wrote it. They had somebody else write it, and this person was not articulate with principles, and it's just this gobbledygook. It's like a soap opera on television. It actually promotes reflection. Since there's no good principles, there's nothing to think about. And so you get stuck back again in your head. You get stuck in that blank out space. It's the same addiction that people have to drugs or alcohol. You're making that rational mind go away. You're making that conscious mind weak so you can get lost in that subconscious. And you don't want to do that because you're not going to get where you want to be in life doing that.